If you have ever promised yourself that this time would be different, that this week you would finally stick to your plans, wake up on time, work on your goals, eat better, study, train, or show up for yourself, only to watch that motivation fade after a day or two, this video is for you because consistency is not about being special, gifted, or endlessly motivated. It is about understanding how change actually works in a tired, distracted, pressure-filled mind. Most young adults are not lazy, broken, or incapable. They are simply using the wrong system, and today you are going to learn how to become consistent in 1 week, even if you have failed before, not by forcing discipline, but by building it correctly from the ground up. Right now, consistency matters more than ever because we live in a world designed to fragment attention, drain willpower, and reward comfort over growth, where social media trains your brain to chase instant dopamine, where comparison makes you feel behind before the day even starts, and where burnout is normalized as ambition. And in this environment, the ability to do small things repeatedly is no longer a nice skill. It is a survival advantage because consistency compounds quietly. It builds confidence, self-trust, and momentum. And without it, talent means nothing. Motivation collapses and goals remain fantasies. But the good news is that consistency is not a personality trait. It is a practice. And the first habit you must build, the least glamorous but most important starting point, is shrinking the target so small it feels almost insulting because most people fail, not because they aim too low, but because they aim too high too fast. And science supports this through the concept of behavioral activation and habit formation, which shows that the brain resists change when the perceived effort is high. So if your goal is to work out, do not start with an hour. Start with 5 minutes. If your goal is to read, start with 1 page. If your goal is to study, start with opening the book and reading 1 paragraph, because the brain does not fear work, it fears overwhelm. And when you lower the barrier to entry, you remove resistance, and action becomes easier than avoidance. And the key is to define success as showing up, not performing perfectly, because consistency is built on identity, not intensity. And every time you complete a tiny action, you cast a vote for the identity of someone who keeps promises to themselves, which slowly rewires self-perception. And the action step here is simple but powerful. Choose one habit you have failed at before and reduce it to the smallest possible version that you can do, even on your worst day. Then commit to doing only that for the first 2 days, nothing more, because momentum comes from starting, not from pushing. The second habit builds on this by anchoring your action to a fixed trigger, because habits that float in time rarely survive. And research on implementation intentions shows that behavior becomes far more consistent when it is tied to a specific cue, like time, location, or an existing routine. So instead of saying, I will work on my goal tomorrow, you say, after I brush my teeth in the morning, I will do my 5-minute habit. Or when I sit at my desk after lunch, I will open my notes and read 1 page, because the brain loves patterns. And when a behavior is attached to something that already happens daily, it requires less decision-making, which preserves willpower. And this matters because decision fatigue is one of the biggest hidden enemies of consistency, especially for young adults juggling studies, work, relationships, and digital noise. And the action here is to choose one non-negotiable daily anchor, something you already do without thinking, and attach your tiny habit to it, making the habit automatic rather than optional. The third habit is where most people either level up or fall apart. And that is tracking the act of showing up, not the outcome, because the brain responds strongly to visual progress. And studies on habit tracking show that seeing a streak increases dopamine associated with effort, not just reward, which trains the brain to enjoy consistency itself. But the mistake people make is tracking results, like weight lost or hours studied, which fluctuate and demotivate. Instead, you track completion, a simple check mark on a calendar, a note in your phone, or a physical habit tracker, because the goal in this first week is not transformation. It is reliability. And when you see yourself showing up day after day, even in a small way, your confidence begins to rebuild, because confidence is not built by hype. It is built by evidence. And the action step is to create the simplest possible tracking system today and commit to marking it immediately after you complete the habit, reinforcing the loop of cue, action, reward. The fourth habit is emotional regulation, which is where consistency becomes real, because most people do not fail when things are easy. They fail when they feel tired, bored, anxious, or discouraged. And neuroscience shows that emotions heavily influence decision-making, often more than logic. So if you rely on motivation alone, you will lose. But if you learn to normalize discomfort, you win. And this habit is about expecting resistance instead of being surprised by it. Telling yourself ahead of time that there will be days when you do not feel like it, and that those days are not exceptions. They are part of the process. And when resistance appears, instead of negotiating with it, you follow a simple rule. Do the minimum version anyway, because consistency is not about how you feel. It is about what you do despite how you feel. And the action step here is to create a personal rule that says, even on bad days, I still show up in the smallest way possible, because this trains emotional resilience and breaks the all or nothing cycle that causes most people to quit. The fifth and most impactful habit is identity reinforcement, because long-term consistency does not come from rules, it comes from self-image, and psychological research on identity-based habits shows that when behavior aligns with identity, it becomes self-sustaining. So instead of saying, I am trying to be consistent, you start saying, I am someone who shows up daily, even when it is hard. And this is reinforced through reflection. At the end of each day, you take 1 minute to acknowledge what you did right, not what you failed at, because the brain learns through repetition and attention, and what you focus on grows. And when you consistently reinforce the identity of reliability, your actions begin to follow automatically. And the action here is to end each day this week by writing or saying one sentence that starts with, I am the type of person who, followed by the action you took, because identity is shaped by evidence and you are now collecting it intentionally. By the end of this week, something subtle but powerful happens. You may not have transformed your life yet, but you will have rebuilt trust with yourself. And that trust is the foundation of every major change you will ever make. Because once you believe you can rely on yourself, consistency stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like who you are. Consistency is not about perfection. It is about returning again and again. And if you follow these 5 habits for 1 week, you will not just be more consistent. You will be more grounded, more confident, and more in control of your direction. So if this video helped you, take a moment to like it, save it, and share it with someone who keeps starting over and blaming themselves, and comment the word consistent below as a declaration to yourself that this week you show up no matter how small, because small done daily changes everything.